All right, so nonlinear deformers. So these are built-in objects that they're in the rigging menu under deform. They're right here. There's several of them, and I'll show you how each of them work and some of their features. But basically, what these allow you to do is take a piece of geometry and distort it using some algorithms. So there's code that drives this stuff. So in a way, it's kind of similar to what you did last week, except not really. But it's a terrific way to add some functionality if you need to. One of these, you're going to be very upset with me when I show you. I promise you. Everybody always is. It does not hurt my feelings in any way, but let's go with 10. But there we are. So 5. Oops. I want to go 5. There. All right. So we got so here's just a piece of geometry. It's just a long box. We'll turn on X-ray so we can see through it, so we can see what we're doing. And what we want to do is we'll select our geometry, and then we're going to apply one of these nonlinear deformers to this geometry. And then by changing the values in the deformer input itself, we can affect what's happening with the geometry. So let me show you what I mean. So you're going to go to deform and nonlinear, and the easiest one, the simplest one, is the bend deformer. And what this allows you to do is just basically take this object and bend it. I'm going to turn on wireframe on shaded so we can see what's happening. See this little line that's running down here through the center of the box? That's the deformer. It's just it's a visual representation of the deformer itself. And right here under the bend handle, which is selected, we've got the input for the bend. And we've got a few channels that we can play with. The main one for the bend is the curvature. So if we select this and then come out into the scene, middle mouse click and drag, we can take this geometry and bend it around. Isn't that awesome? Yay. So one of the tricks with this is you want to make sure you have enough geometry. So when you do your pair, when you're working with your pair, the first thing you want to do is apply a smooth node to it so it doubles the geometry. So when you're deforming it, it deforms pleasingly. Right now it's a very low polygon pair, but you want to take that and go to, let's see, modeling. So you're going to go to mesh and smooth when the pair is selected, and then you can take division levels to like 2. And that'll add some, it basically subdivides the geometry that's already there, which means that the deformer has more geometry to work with. So it'll be a lot smoother. Okay, so the main feature of the bend is the curvature. But you've got a couple other controls here that help you refine this a little bit. The first one is the envelope. An envelope just means how much of this effect is being applied to this object. It's a 0 to 1 range. If we set this to 0, then it's not applied at all, even though the curvature is there. As we go up from 0, we get an increasing amount of that effect applied until we hit 1, and it's the full effect. Does that make sense? It's like a switch, like 0 and 1, except we've got it's a float, so we've got decimal places in the middle. Low bound and high bound have to do with where along the length of this the effect takes place. So the low bound is -1, so it's here at the bottom. If this is 2 units tall, -1 is at the bottom, 1 is at the top. So if I take low bound and I turn that down, then I can bring the effect so that it only happens at the very top here. So this can sway back and forth like this, and the bottom, even though the effect is applied to the entire geometry, because the low bound is set to 0, the bottom of the geometry isn't affected at all. Does that make sense? Yes, no? Okay, good. Just making sure. Same thing with high bound. Let's just put that back to -1. Same thing with high bound. It's the exact same deal. Once you get to 1, it basically encompasses the entire object. And you can make a complete circle out of this, 180 degrees curvature, and then there's your candy cane. So next Christmas, if you wanted to make a quick candy cane, now you know how. Okay, so one thing with these, though, I want to show you real quick. Let's say we got some curvature on here. If I select the object and I move the object away from the nonlinear deformer, it changes the shape of the object. So anything you do, any movement that you make that separates the deformer from the geometry is going to affect the geometry. So what you want to do is, in order to keep that from happening, what are we going to do? One more time? Parent, absolutely. Child, shift select parent, hit P. Now when we move the geometry, the deformer goes with it. We also have the flexibility to take the deformer and move it around. But now typically you want to have the geometry as the parent, because if you want to move the geometry, you want that deformer to go with it. And then if you want to do something fancier, you can just move the deformer itself. These are all keyable. So if we get our bend, and let's just set everything back. Set that back to 0. These are all keyable, so I'm going to right click, key selected, and then I'm going to come out here a few frames and change my curvature this way. And I'm going to turn on my auto key. In this case, we'll set a key. Come out a few more. Get my curvature going the other direction. See it auto keyed right there. I also want to key the low bound here. Because the next thing I'm going to do is change the low bound. And I'll key this as well, because now I'm going to come out a few extra frames and switch the low bound back to 1, take the high bound down to 0, and that's all keyed. So now, over a very quick number of frames, we get, oh, we're playing every frame, aren't we? Let's play that at real time. So all the values that are in the deformer are keyable, and this is true of all the deformers that we're going to look at. Everything's keyable and animatable. All right. If I select the deformer and I hit delete, the model goes back to where it started from. So there's no, the deformer is actively affecting the geometry. It's not breaking the geometry. It's non-destructive is the term that we like to use. There are ways to freeze it, and I'll show you that in just a minute. Yeah, that'll do. Create that. And we'll bring it up here like that. And we'll do, yeah, we're wireframe unshaded. Very good. Okay. So I've selected my object. I'll come back over here to rigging and deform and nonlinear. And my next one is flare. And what the flare does is it allows you to scale out on multiple axes, out or in on multiple axes. So, so we can go on the X, we can go on the Z, that's the start of the flare, and then the end of the flare is up here at the top. If we wanted to bend this, we can add a curve into the center, and then we still have the same low bound and high bound options. So we can move that little circle at the top and the bottom shows where that's being applied. So we've got a lot of flexibility with this guy to change the shape, both at the bottom and at the top. We can do these differently. And if we want the bottom, yeah, let's go here. We want the bottom to be wide in this direction and narrow in this direction, and then the top being the opposite. We can do that. And that's our flare. And our next one is a sine wave. Oops, I didn't select anything, my bad. Deform, nonlinear, sine. And we'll select that. And we can go amplitude is one of the values, so that the size of the wave, how deep the wave troughs are, the wavelength, so how many waves are there. The geometry on this won't support much more than that, but you can see that you can really crank it up. So if you've got a really dense piece of geometry, you can have a really wiggly shape. We'll bring it back down to something that the geometry can support. Offset is if you want to have it move. It's taking the wave and offsetting it. So again, this would be something that you could animate. You set it, set a key here, and then move out here and take your offset and crank it up a little bit, and you could have this wiggly animation as you go. Drop off is how much is happening in the middle here. 0 is the default. It matches the shape of the wave. -1 cheats at one direction, 1 cheats at the other direction. So it takes it away from running right down the center of the object. And then once again, let's go back to, come on, 0. There we go. We got low bound and high bound. So if we wanted to, we could actually, one of the things we could do we can do that's the wrong one. I grabbed the wrong one. We can offset this and have, like a little snake kind of thing, a little cobra, bobbing its head back and forth while its body waves. So that's our, that's the sine wave. So squash, this is the one that might irritate some folk. So remember when we animated our bouncing ball? When we did squash and stretch? Yeah. And the big thing was when you squash it one direction, you have to expand it out in the other two axes equally so that it maintains its volume. So this is that's what this does. So here we are. Factor is the control here. When you scale it down, you go to the negative on the factor. It makes the object shorter, but it also expands it proportionally out on the other two axes, on the X and the Z. When you go positive, it extends it on the Y and compresses it on the X and the Z. So it's keeping the same volume. So if you were doing a bouncing ball, this would be a really good nonlinear deformer to use to do a bounce. You know, ball's coming along and it hits the ground, you know, squash, and then it takes off, stretch, gets its shape back, stretches out again on the way down, squash, stretch. So that's a really handy one. But you can use it for other things as well. If you want to, you know, make it not quite as Mike and Ike like. I just made that up. How about that? Huh? Off the top of my head. You want to get a little more egg shaped, you can use the expand. And then we've also got low bound and high bound on this as well. So the best thing to do with these things to figure out how they work is just play with them. You know, just create some basic geometry and fool around with it. See what you can get out of it. Let it inspire you as far as what you're going to do with your pair. Don't jump right in with the pair. It's better to, you know, maybe spend a half hour, 45 minutes, an hour, just messing around with these to see what you can get out of them, and you know, it might inspire some ideas. So our next one. Do you have a question?
Yeah. For the pair thing, do we have to like pick music and like add in stuff?
Great question. I will answer that in a little bit. So we got a twist next, which does exactly what it sounds like it would do. Basically, it takes this, you have a start angle and an end angle, and it takes the geometry and just twists it around. And the twist really doesn't work so well on a spherical shape because you can't really see what's going on. I'll show you what I mean. So we get the twist here, and we do our start angle. It does twist it around, but all it really does is skew the faces. It doesn't really add anything interesting to the geometry. So, but you can take your twist here, and again, this is how much you get out of this will depend upon how detailed your geometry is. I've twisted it way past the point where this geometry can support the amount of rotation that this currently has. But if I had a higher density piece of geometry, it would absolutely support that. You know, a couple simple twists like that, it's capable of handling. Once we get much beyond that, it's not going to. And again, low bound and high bound. You know, so if you need to make a drill bit, right? Use the twist, put a little bit of twist on some of the geometry, pull the high bound up, or the low bound up rather, whichever, you can go either way. Grab the end of this, taper it down. You gotta, you know, it's not perfect, but it's pretty good, pretty good start on a drill bit. All right, and then we got one more, and I'm gonna go here with it. And it's the wave. And again, with the wave, it's, oh, yeah, this is not going to work. So I chose poorly, just like that guy in the Indiana Jones movie. So let's get in here on this guy. So what this one does is it's kind of like the sine wave, except it goes all the way around. The wave that is generated is 360 degrees. Wavelength is you know, how many peaks and valleys there are, and again, you know, how effective that'll be will be dependent upon how dense your geometry is. But you can go way up. You know, you can have all kinds of really, you know, multiple waves going on there. These are also animatable. See, all of these values are animatable. You just put in a new value, key it, move out a few frames, key it some more, and that's how you're going to get your pair to dance. Doing the wiggling and jumping around and all that stuff. That's how you're going to end up doing it. Okay, so let's say for a second that you get this, and you put a, it's not for this assignment necessarily, but you've got this thing, and you've created a bend. You put a little curvature in it. You played with the low bound to back it off a little bit. This is like a piece that you're putting on. You're doing a spaceship model, and this is like an exhaust port or something. You can parent these together, and then when you move this around, the deformer will stay with it. But that makes it cumbersome. You've got an additional piece of information in there that Maya has to process all the time, and it's really just it's a static piece. It's never going to move on your model. You just need it to be that shape. So what you can do then is you select your geometry. If you wanted to keep it like this and not have the deformer, select your geometry, modify. I think it's modify freeze transformations. No, that's not it. Bah. Where are we? Oh, edit. Sorry, edit. Delete by type. History. Boom. My bad. You delete the history. It deletes the deformer, but it keeps the effect of the deformer. It basically bakes in the effect of the deformer onto the geometry. So the deformer's gone now. And now we have this piece of geometry that looks like this. So it will forever look like this now. So if you wanted to use these to kind of do some modeling, some quick modeling, you needed to have like like a wiggly hose going across something. You could use the sine wave to create that, and then delete the history. The deformer's gone, but the geometry still has the curvature to it. Make sense? Yeah.
Can you put multiple deformers on one object?
That's a great question. The answer is absolutely.
How about the hierarchy of inputs?
So deformers always function in a hierarchical manner. So the first one that you put on will be the first one applied. Anything you apply after that, if it can affect the one below it, it will. So let's mess with that a little bit. Let's see. So we'll put this in this one. We'll put, let's see. Put a couple on here. We'll put on a flare, and we'll put on a squash. Nope, sorry. Deform. You have to make sure you select your object before you use it, or before you apply it. So here's our flare. We'll go ahead and we'll flare it out this way a little bit. And then we'll grab our squash and stretch. So yeah, it seems to be holding it. Oh, I see, because it's looking at it as an input and output. So let's go this way. So it's still, it's hanging in there. So you still want to be a little thoughtful about, which order you place them in. But they do work together, absolutely. And you'd have to, that's the only way you could do it. Otherwise, you'd be stuck with just one effect. And none of the clips that I showed you use just one effect. They all use multiple effects. Now to get back to Ian, Aiden, Ian, Aiden. God damn it! Screwed up all the time.
It was your last chance.
For the semester, I'm going to study over the summer. I'm going to sit in my backyard with pictures, flashcards, and my fiance go, "Which one's this?" I'm like, "Ah, I'm just trying to take a shower."
Don't worry, I'll come back next year probably.
Yay.
Hopefully.
Okay, so the question then is, all right, so you asked a question about sound. So let's take a look at the assignment. All right, so the assignment is, using your square pair from previously, you're going to use the nonlinear deformers that you select, whichever ones you like. And again, I strongly encourage you to just play around with them, get a sense of them. To make the pair dance to a music loop. It has to be a loop, okay? You're going to use the music. You're going to sync the movements of your pair to the music, okay? So there are 3 loops that are provided. Actually, I think there's more. Is there more than 3 now? I think there might be more than 3. Maybe not. Let's find out. Nope, there's 3. All right, so here's the first one. Okay, so these loop. These are audio clips that just loop around. When they get to the end, they go back. They go right back to the beginning and play again. Okay, so that's the first one. Here's the second one. And here's the third one. I think that one's my favorite. Let me say we listen to this for an hour. It's only 3 seconds long. We'd hear it, what, how many times? 10 times in 30 seconds, so 60 times in a minute, so 1,200 times. All right, so those are the 3 that are provided for your use. Can I do my own loop? Absolutely. But here are the parameters of the assignment. Your audio must loop. It has to, when you play it in a loop, it has to start over again, immediately. It can't be like a weird break. Like you can't do like the first 10 seconds of Celine Dion singing "My Heart Will Go On" and then go back to the beginning, because literally nobody wants to hear that. So your audio has to be a loop, okay? Your animation has to be a loop. You might have noticed that when I showed you the examples, all of those pairs ended up back where they started from so that we could just play these things in a loop, right? So wherever you start out is where your clip has to finish by the time your audio is done, so that when we play it, it can be played endlessly, okay? This is what I do over the summer. I just sit and watch these things endlessly. It helps me shut my mind off. And just...
I imagine you watch them fortnightly all side by side so you can compare them with each other.
Multiple monitors. I have a command deck in my house. Just monitors all wrapped around me. So your animation has to loop, your audio has to loop. What's that?
I said you get paid very well for a teacher.
I didn't say where they.
Command center.
I didn't say where they came from.
Ooh.
I might know a guy who knows a guy. You never know.
Pretty slow.
Came off the back of a truck. You never know. Anyway, so there you go. So you can use one of these three if you like. There are tons and tons of audio loops that are absolutely free on the web. You can download any one of those you like. Keep it under, let's say, 5 seconds. Keep your loop under 5 seconds. Just because you know, for the animation aspect of it, it's going to take you longer. If you got like a 30-second loop, you have a lot more flexibility, but then you have a lot more animation to do. So let's keep it around 5 seconds. Like the Moscow one that I showed you, I did not provide that loop. that was provided by the student. She did a great job. Yeah, it has to, both the animation and the audio have to loop. So there we go. And once you got it animated, you're going to create a simple set and light the scene. So we want to, in this case, we want a rendered version. We don't want to play blast. We want these rendered. Okay, we want to look nice. So that's why you want to do a smooth. You want to apply a smoothing node to your pair so that it looks good when you render it. And we want to do a little bit, and it doesn't have to be a complex set. You saw some of those were basically just floors with a spotlight on them. That's perfectly fine. There are some that get a little carried away, at like the Moscow one, for example. Yeah, it needs to be in a little environment. You're going to render out your frames and then composite them into a QuickTime movie along with the sound file. And again, make sure you got a smooth node to your pair before you rendered. And if you don't, there's a grade reduction. So you want to have the pair moving in sync with the music track. Pairs on a set, complete music track, animated. Pairs rendered, not play blasted. Music track loops, the scene's lit, animation's assigned. So that's all. You hit all of those things, you get an A. And if any one or more are missing, it's a deduction from there. So, quick refresher. How do I get my sound into Maya? We're going to go down here. Nope, I take that back. We're not. We're going to go up here. Where are we? Where's import? Import under File. And then you're going to navigate to wherever your sound is. In my case, it's on the desktop. In your case, it should be in your project directory under source files. Here's loops and experiment. And there's my loop right there. So I clearly don't have all of it at this point. So what I can do is, I'm sorry?
This is modern art.
Modern art. Sure, let's go with that. So what I want to do is I want to create an active range that includes the entire audio track. And basically what you're looking at is just this waveform. And once that waveform ends, you know the audio track's done. So I've got a 95 frame audio track here. So now what I would do is I'm going to take this, delete. I'll go with this. Why not? We'll use the squash. So you want to scrub this and figure out so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have anticipate down, then when this drum hit happens, have them pop up. So anytime there's a drum hit like that, he's going to pop up. So we'll take this, take our squash and stretch. We'll set the factor, key selected. And we'll squash them down a little bit. There's my drum hit. And we'll take our factor up. Somebody let them in. On the door. Oh. There. Back down. There he is again. I love that that's so clear. You just go one frame and it goes tick. All right, so rewind. And then what's my key down here? It's like that. So I'm going to just right click and do a copy. And then come down here and do a paste to get him back to where he started from. Obviously, you want to be a little more complex than this. This is just to kind of give you an example of how it works. Yeah.
So is this due next Tuesday or next Tuesday because of spring break?
You could bring it in next Tuesday. There won't be anybody to show it to because we'll be on spring break. Next week is spring break. So it's due in 2 weeks. So, yeah. Yeah, I'll give you a week off. You know, go skiing while the snow's still there. Go to the beach while the weather warms up. Whatever you choose. Whatever you want to do. I'm going to be writing a book. Because now I have all kinds of time on my hands. So, everybody got an idea of what we're doing here?
Yeah.
Okay. So once you're done, then put this in your batch render it out. Do the set, light it, render it out, composite it together. You can do the compositing QuickTime 7. You can bring in all the frames. You bring in all the frames and make the movie file out of it. Put the playback head on the first frame, and then import the sound. It'll put it right in there for you. So you have to go crazy, putting in After Effects or a video editor or anything. You can do all the compositing in QuickTime 7. You look like a dog that can't quite figure out your head. Your head went over the side like a dog. Like, how come I can't get the bacon? I'm not saying you're a dog. I'm saying it's just kind of what? All right. So let me show you. As long as we're doing it, because the video is still recording. Why not? Let's see what the render looks like, just for grins. Ah, nothing showing up. Yay. Okay. Let's see what our renderer is. Windows, rendering editors, render settings. We're probably in Arnold. Yeah. Go to Maya Software, because that's faster. There we go. Look at that. Okay. So we'll just do a quick render of this. Rendering editors, render settings. We're going to go with JPEG. I'm going to go with name number dot extension. Deformer. And these are going to go into default images. Okay. Start with frame 1, end with frame 95. Oops, 95. Okay. Rendering. Render. Batch render. So this will take a minute or two. Take a second to figure out what's going on. There it goes. It's cranking through these. Look at that. 60, 70, 80, 90, 5. Done. Okay. So we'll go over here and we'll go into documents. Where are we? Maya, projects, default, images, and there's all of our deformer frames, right? So now we're going to go to applications, and I'm going to get utilities, QuickTime 7. We should still be on Pro, which we are. We're going to open up a image sequence. Now we're going to go to Maya, Projects, Default, where all of our frames are. Images, grab the very first one, because that's all we got to get. And it'll know that we want the whole thing. Frame rate's 24 frames a second. So there's our animation, right?
Where's the music?
Hold on. So I'm going to put the playback head. You don't get the music through the render because these are just frames. So I'm going to put the playback head here. I'm going to do, let's see, I'm going to open my audio file. And this is the one I used. Okay. Grab this whole thing. Open bracket, end bracket, edit, copy. I'm going to come over here with my playback head at the very beginning. Edit, paste. And we should get, nope, that didn't work. Okay, so let's undo that. Let's do this. Open it up here, and then we'll try pasting it. No, that still didn't work. Yeah. All right, hold on. We'll figure this out. Oh, right, add to movie. That's what I want. I think that's what I want. I'm pretty sure that's what I want. Put this over here. Edit. Add to movie. Ah, there we go. I think I got it. is not moving. You bastard. Okay. And now we're okay. Don't save. Aren't you glad you're getting this on video? Documents, Maya, projects, default, images, deformer. 24 frames a second. Thank you. All right, let's try this. Try this instead. Edit. Copy. I'm going to leave that where it is. I'm going to try that move again. Add a movie. There it is. Watch that all day long. All right, so let me show you how to do that again. This time, error-free. All right, so I'm going to go to QuickTime 7. I'm going to open an image sequence. I navigate to where my pictures are. Pick the very first one in the sequence. You don't need to pick them all, just the first one. Hit open. It'll ask how many frames. 24 frames a second is what we animated at, so that's what we wanted at. Don't change it. Hit OK. You're going to leave this playback head right at the very beginning of that image sequence. Then, with your audio file, we're going to open it. We're going to open that up. Open the other file, which is where our audio is. Desktop. Here's our loop, and there's that. Now, for this one, we're going to take these brackets and we're going to open it all the way up. See how it's highlighted? Want this bracket at that end and that bracket at this end. And we're going to copy it. And then we're going to select our movie file again with the playback head there at the very beginning. And we're going to go Edit, Add to Movie. And it'll open that thing up like that because it's taken the audio and slammed it in there. And we'll slide that back, hit play. There we go. And then, of course, export desktop. We'll call this figured it out because we did figure it out. Save it. And it'll export it out. And then that would be the file that you'd upload. So there it is. Figured it out .mov. And there's no audio. Probably because I didn't check it like a dummy. File, export, and want to check the options here. Yep, sound was not turned on. Make sure sound is turned on. So when you go to export, it'll be movie to QuickTime Movie, and just click on options. Make sure sound is turned on, and then we'll pick that again. It'll say, do you want to replace it? I'll say, of course, because the other one doesn't work right. And then we come down here. Desktop, figured it out. Here we go. There we are. Piece of cake. A big drippy piece of cake. Okay, questions? Feel good?
Yeah.
No.
Yes, I mean,
Yeah.
I have a question, but it should wait after you're done with the lecture.
Okay, that's fine. We can do that. All right. So, yeah, again, the instructions are very, very clear on the website. But again, just to say them again, your audio. If you pick your own audio, it must loop. It shouldn't be more than about 5 seconds long. Your animation has to loop, so the beginning and the end of your animation have to match up so it plays in an endless cycle. Okay? Your scene has to be lit and rendered with an environment. Don't forget to add a smooth node to your pair when you render it, because otherwise it'll come out looking all chunky and weird. And that's about it. I'm looking forward to seeing them.
How
They
do
will be
you
fun.
composite the scene in Maya?
How do you what?
How do you composite the setting in Maya?
You just bring in the elements that, you know.
We've
If I-
never learned that in the other class.
Well, you can build it right in here, or if you have something that you want to bring in, you can go edit. Where's it? File, import. So like if you got a room that you want to use, just go to File and Import, and it'll take you to a picker, and then you just navigate to wherever it is the thing is that you want to import, and you bring it in.
And what can you import? Does it have to be another Maya file, or it can be?
It can be they work better if they're Maya files, but since it's a scene, since it's just an environment, it doesn't have to be, but it has to be a file type that Maya recognizes. So your best bet there is a .obj file. So it's sort of OBJ is sort of the JPEG of 3D. You know, OBJ stands for object. And any 3D application could read a .obj file. They don't all treat them very well. Maya's certainly in that group. And they can be a little hard to work with. They can really weigh your scene down, slow you down. So if, unless you're bringing in something specific that you want to work with, like a chair or a lamp or something like that, if you just need a room, what I would do is just throw up a few polygon planes and arrange them so it looks like a room, and you're done. Do it directly in Maya.
And can we find an OBJ file online somewhere?
Absolutely.
You can download and then import.
Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. All of varying quality. And the free ones are usually pretty crappy.
And is it possible to edit all these in After Effects?
Oh, sure.
So
Yeah, because what comes out of Maya is just an image. You're just generating an image file. So, yeah, anything that's a flat image can be edited in After Effects. You bet.
So we will be exporting all of those images to and import
Well,
them
you're
to-
rendering all the images out, and then you can bring them into After Effects if you want.
So we render them as individual images and then import them into After Effects.
You can bring them into After Effects to do the edit if you want. If you're familiar with After Effects and you're comfortable doing that, sure, absolutely. And After Effects does the same thing that QuickTime does. If you pick the very first image in your sequence, it will recognize the sequential numbers and grab the whole thing as a chunk and bring it all in at once.
It's just easier to do compositing in After Effects.
If you're more, again, if you're more comfortable doing it that way, feel free.
Is there any way we can render Maya into a movie file instead of
No.
images?
I mean, there is, but no. Don't. You'd never want to do that.
Why not?
Because the quality is not as good, and Maya doesn't write a file until it's finished rendering. So if you're in the middle of a render and the power goes out, you've lost all the work. You've lost all your rendering work. If you're rendering image files and the power goes out, you've lost one image. So can you do it? Yes, absolutely. Is it preferred? No. It's not good practice to do it. It is not a good, it's not a good workflow to render out, because then you're also limited. You're stuck with a movie file, whereas with individual images, you can do adjustments to each individual image if you decide to.
But if we render it into images, then we would end up having like hundreds of images. If we have 20
Yeah.
frames a second, it will be like,
Right, but again, if you're bringing it into QuickTime or you're bringing it into After Effects, and all of your rendered frames are in one folder, in one directory, both of those applications recognize the sequential image numbering, and they bring it in as one piece. They don't bring it in as individual frames. It brings them in as one piece.
that is only if you're rendering into QuickTime, not After Effects.
After Effects does the same thing.
I don't understand how you can move them into After Effects.
You just import them as an asset. like you would any asset. But you pick the first one, it automatically goes, oh, there's a whole bunch of these that are named the same and numbered sequentially, and it brings it in as an image sequence. Trust me, that's what it does. I've used it. I have to make it not do that sometimes because I only want one, and pick one and it brings it. I don't want all of them. I just want the one. So you have to turn it on, but it does it by default. Okay. Any other questions of a general nature? No? Okay. Yeah.
So for the smoothing then, how much do you want us to smooth it? Is there like a general recommended amount?
Great question. Okay, so there's this guy right here, let's say, and we're going to render him. And right now he looks pretty crappy when he's rendered. He's all chunky. Looks like an air conditioning vent. We want it to be nice and smooth. So you're going to go to modeling, the modeling menu, and under mesh you've got this option for smooth right here, and then you can click on the option box and you can smooth from 1 to 4 levels. 1 usually works pretty well. 2's kind of my default. That's usually where I smooth to. Above 2 you're really just generating a ton of geometry that you don't need. It doesn't help. It doesn't create a smoother image, and it just loads up the scene. So once you pick 1 or 2, you just hit smooth, and it smooths that out. So now it's got a nice curvy kind of Cheeto quality to it. That was yellow, or orange rather. Assign new material. Lambert. And we give it a nice yellowy orange kind of color. Like that, kind of a nuclear. There we go. Then we render that. Yay, it's a Cheeto. So, and then you've got this. If you decide that 2 is too much, you can always come in here and crank it down a little bit. This is just a node that's on the, it's an input node that's on the geometry. So, if you decide you don't like it at all, you want it to be boxier again, just take it back down to 0. So it's just it's a node that's on top of the geometry. So if you want to go up to 4, that's what it looks like at 4. But the render doesn't look any better. It just takes longer. But you can do it. So there's really no significant difference between that and this. They look virtually identical. So. Okay? All right. So if you want to jump in and get going on this, you're welcome to do so. We've got about an hour and a half of class time left. You had a question, and Tiger had a question. He asked first, so I'm going to go talk to him first, and then you and I will talk. Like I said, this is it for me for the semester. So I will be checking back in with you just to see how things are going. I might pop in on occasion just to say hello. It has been a pleasure working with all of you. I don't like at all that I can't finish the semester with you guys. But I will see you at the end of the year show, because your stuff's going to be in the show, so you should show up, and I will definitely be there for that. I'll be checking email, although infrequently, probably a couple, 3 times a week. So if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email with the knowledge that it may take me a little while to get back to you. So
I have a general question. question.
Okay.
Do we have to make a new pair?
No, use the pair you already did.
I was just gonna ask, did you get another person for the class tomorrow too?
Yes.
Who
John's coming back.
Oh, okay.
I'll be doing that one tomorrow. That will be my absolute last class for the
Oh,
semester. And then once spring break is over, John's going to fill in for the rest of the semester.
okay.
So
Can you show her how to record her presentation?
we'll discuss it. It's entirely up to. I'm going to go ahead and stop this because we're done